In the dead of night, a man frantically flees from his pursuers, carrying an unconscious person towards a hole in a field. In his fear, he drops the person into the cosmic rift just as his pursuers catch up to him. 3 days earlier, Royal Abbott wakes up on his ranch. His wife, Cecilia, had dreamed of their family living in peace and prosperity, a contrast to her current life. Royal, feeling uneasy, saddles his horse and rides out to inspect his cows, unaware of the surprises awaiting him in the field. Back at the Abbott Ranch, Cecilia prepares breakfast for the family. Sons Perry and Rhett, along with granddaughter Amy, gather around the table. When Royal returns, he notices that 2 hours have inexplicably passed, but he dismisses it. This moment marks the beginning of the strangeness. The Abbott family goes to church, where everyone prays except Royal, who sits apart reading a newspaper. After the service, Amy gives Royal a drawing of their family, including her mother, Rebecca, who disappeared 9 months ago. The family continues to hope for her return. That evening, they attend a rodeo where Rhett competes but is quickly eliminated when his bull proves too unruly. Despite the audience's mockery, the family supports Rhett. Later that night, Cecilia tells Amy the story of how she met Royal. When Royal was 9, he wandered onto Cecilia's family ranch with no memory of his past. They took him in, and he and Cecilia eventually married. Meanwhile, Royal notices the birds acting unusually anxious. His neighbor, Wayne Tillerson, also senses something amiss and calls the Abbotts with a warning. The next morning, Royal and Perry discover 2 cows are missing and decide to check the fence around the ranch. As they prepare to leave, a wanderer named Utham, a poet seeking enlightenment, arrives with a backpack and asks to stay on their land. Royal allows her to camp in the field. While inspecting the fence, Wayne Tillerson's sons approach from the other side, bringing unpleasant news to the Abbotts. The state says you're nearly a mile over our property line, and you have 30 days to move your fences off our land, Wayne Tillerson tells the Abbotts. If they don't comply, they'll face fines, backed by official documents. Royal suspects deceit but doesn't yet understand why Wayne wants his land. It seems Wayne is either plotting something or losing his mind. Meanwhile, the Abbotts spread out along the fence. Through binoculars, Royal spots something odd in a field and drives over to investigate. What he finds shocks him, a huge, round pit of unknown origin. Royal can't comprehend this phenomenon. He throws a pebble into the pit, but it dissolves into strange dust before hitting the bottom. Curious, Royal puts his hand into the pit and suddenly finds himself at home, where Cecilia is hosting guests. He pulls his hand out and is back in the field, noticing dark spots on his hand that quickly fade. Confused, he heads home. At home, Royal's vision becomes reality as Cecilia welcomes Sheriff Joy. Royal is astonished at his accurate prediction. Joy informs Perry, Rebecca's husband, that the FBI has stopped searching for her. Perry is outraged but doesn't despair, focusing on caring for their daughter, Amy. Unaware that the search for her mother has been called off, Amy remains hopeful. Royal wonders if Rebecca might have fallen into the mysterious pit. The next morning, Royal returns to the pit, which he hasn't told anyone about, and tries to fill it with soil. The pit seems bottomless, swallowing the shovel. He attempts to cover it with a tarp, but it resists. Frustrated, he throws a land transfer document to the Tillersons into the pit. Nearby, a wounded bison with arrows in its side appears. Royal, now utterly baffled, follows the bison to Utham's tent, but the bison vanishes. He warns Utham not to wander far from the tent. She smiles and asks Royal to sell her the ranch for a large sum, also inquiring if he has any secrets. Royal remains silent, unwilling to sell the ranch or share his secrets. That evening, Perry and Rhett go to a bar and get drunk. Rhett sees his first love, Maria, with one of the Tillerson brothers, which infuriates him. He tells Perry to move on and stop dwelling on Rebecca, as it's too painful. Perry steps outside for fresh air and encounters Trevor Tillerson. tension rises, and a fight nearly breaks out. Meanwhile, inside the bar, Maria joins Rhett. It turns out they still get along well. Suddenly, Rhett notices a fight brewing outside. He rushes out to defend the intoxicated Perry and attacks Trevor Tillerson, restraining him so forcefully that his belt buckle comes off. Rhett returns to the bar, but Trevor, still furious, starts insulting Rebecca in front of Perry. Enraged, Perry loses control and accidentally kills Trevor. Rhett quickly drives up to help Perry, and the brothers, in shock, drive along the highway with Trevor's lifeless body. Perry is dazed, having never intended for things to go this far. Suddenly, a wounded bison with arrows in its side blocks their path, signaling something mystical. The Abbott brothers arrive home and hide in the stable. Royal sees them and approaches. Realizing that if Perry confesses, little Amy will be left without parents, Royal decides to handle the situation himself. He takes their soiled clothes and sends a distraught Perry to bed. Now, Royal and Rhett need to clean the car and hide Trevor. Meanwhile, the remaining Tillerson brothers find Trevor's belt buckle and head to the Abbott ranch. Perry tries to stay calm as the Tillersons insist on seeing Rhett, suspecting him of the crime. Perry signals with a light to the stable, stalling for time. The Tillersons notice scratches on Perry's hand and ask him to come outside, spotting tire tracks leading to the stable. Sensing trouble, the Tillersons break down the stable door, finding it empty. Royal, meanwhile, has taken Trevor's body on horseback into the field. The Tillersons notice horse manure and decide to search the fields for a rider. Royal dismounts and carries Trevor's body, getting caught on barbed wire along the way. He reaches the pit and throws Trevor in, hoping their problems are solved. Suddenly, a bright light appears behind him, Autumn with a flashlight. She seems to understand the situation better than anyone, speaking of the god Kronos, who separates worlds with his scythe. She suggests the hole is a portal to another time. Autumn promises to keep the pit a secret, then unexpectedly embraces Royal and pushes him in. Frightened by her own actions, she flees, taking Royal's shirt from the barbed wire. Hi movie buffs, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, share, and bell button. It's free and it really helps. You'll be notified of each new recap. The Tillersons, finding no one in the fields, return to the Abbott house. Cecilia meets them at the door, calming them down and even making them apologize for the commotion. The Tillersons leave, and Cecilia heads to the kitchen to address her family's problems. Royal regains consciousness in the middle of the field, noticing a bison with arrows in its side grazing nearby. He finds his horse and rides home, where his family has been waiting all night in the kitchen. Without giving details, Royal assures them that Trevor has been dealt with and insists they resume their normal activities. During the tense family meeting, they decide to drive Autumn off their land to ensure she doesn't see anything suspicious. They also notice a wound on Royal's leg, resembling a gunshot. Cecilia tends to it, but Royal doesn't explain how he got into a shootout, still confused about the night's events. Sheriff Joy arrives in response to the Tillersons' call. The brothers show her Trevor's belt buckle and promise their support in her re-election if she investigates. Joy agrees to help. Meanwhile, Rhett visits Maria at work and invites her to lunch. They talk about life and hope to rekindle their relationship. Rhett also asks Maria to keep quiet about his fight with Trevor, and she agrees. Royal and Perry visit a lawyer to discuss their land rights. On the way, Royal tries to uplift Perry, but Perry is still struggling with the shock. The lawyer advises them to give a piece of land to the Tillersons, as the old maps are unclear and it's evident that the Tillersons have bribed the judge. However, Royal is unsatisfied with surrendering, knowing Wayne Tillerson is too cunning to trust. Royal visits Wayne to have a direct conversation. On Wayne's table, he finds a business card of an agronomist researching rare elements, raising his suspicions. He takes the card and confronts Wayne about the land. Wayne's evasive responses make Royal more suspicious. Royal offers another piece of land, but Wayne insists on the western pastures, where the mysterious hole is located. Sensing something is off, Royal refuses to give up. Utham wanders the Abbott property and notices a strange symbol on a rock. She realizes she has been unconsciously drawing this symbol in her notebooks but doesn't understand its meaning. Utham encounters Amy near the rock, who explains that the symbol is the Abbott family brand. Amy also tells Utham that Royal is alive and returned home that morning. Relieved, Utham reflects on why she pushed Royal into the hole, not fully understanding her actions. Meanwhile, Royal arrives at Utham's tent to retrieve his shirt, then goes to the hole and throws the shirt into the misty unknown, covering all traces of the crime. At home, before dinner, Royal is lost in thought. The numerous mysteries weigh heavily on Royal's mind, and he blames God for all their troubles. Frustrated, he insists that the cows be moved to another part of the pasture, far from the ominous hole. The next day, the Abbotts, without question, drive the cattle away from the hole. Suddenly, Royal sees a calf break away from the herd and run toward the hole. He barely manages to save the animal. In the evening, Royal goes to the barn and retrieves an old photograph he has kept hidden. Utham also arrives at the barn. There is a peculiar connection between them, as if they had known each other before. Neither remembers their childhood before the age of 9, but they believe they can find answers by helping each other. Utham asks Royal to recount what he saw when he fell into the hole. Royal explains that he fell slowly and then woke up in a field under bright spotlights, surrounded by oil derricks with no escape in sight. A large crowd of locals had gathered, all dressed in work uniforms. They looked at him with confusion and fear, avoiding any interaction. Only Cecilia approached him, saying it was no longer their land and that Royal had been gone for 2 years. Then something strange happened. Tillerson immediately pulled out a gun and shot Royal in the leg. The rest were also ready to shoot, but Royal quickly jumped back into the hole. What do you think? Is the hole in the middle of the field a portal to the future? We are going to find out, as Season 2 has just started. Thanks for watching. If there's anything you would like to see, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe.